So actually, this talk is 2 years old, but I decided to change it. I decided I'm going to make some changes because I looked at the slides and I thought, those stories are from a long, long past, which is 2 years ago, and I'm going to share some newer stories. So part of it is old, part of it is new. And the thing that is familiar perhaps to some of you is I sort of started with the same issue as with the earlier talk this morning, is the questions that I get around the world. I actually asked people in my Management 3.0 workshops for 1.5 years. Every time I did a workshop all over the world, I asked them, write down your biggest problems on a sticky note. How can we ... And I have a box at home full of stickies, 1,500 stickies with people's problems from all over the world. I'm sure, I hope it's worth a lot of money, all this data, this research that I did. Maybe Accenture will pay me for it at one moment. But I did a bit of analysis, and this turned out to be, this is the actual box that you hear, by the way, that you see, all these stickies I have. And I did a huge sample of several hundred stickies, and these were the questions that I saw all the time. How do we motivate our workers? How can we change the culture? How can we change the mindset of managers, etc.? Get managers to trust their teams. Now, what do you see is the pattern across all these questions? Except for the first two words. Okay, yeah, I will give you that. Very smart. Yeah, very smart. What else is the pattern across these questions? Anyone? Right? Nothing about me. Exactly. How can we change them? Right? How can we change those people? I know what we should be doing, but they're not doing it. We always look at others, and they may have a good point. But those colleagues are probably also pointing at you for other topics. Yeah. And it reminded me of the famous quote by Gandhi, who said, be the change you want to see in the world. Right? It starts with yourself, which is a very good suggestion. So I have some suggestions about starting with yourself. First, a question for you. I hear quite a lot around the world that every now and then you should celebrate failure. How many of you agree that it is okay every now and then to celebrate failure? Let me see your hands. All right, good number of hands go up. All right, good. And how many of you say, well, that's all very nice, but we should actually, it is better to celebrate success. Let me just celebrate success first before we celebrate failure. All right, even more hands. How many of you say, let's just celebrate everything, failure, success, whatever, party all the time? Right, that makes no sense at all. Okay, so here's a diagram that I created based on the work of Donald Reinertsen, very smart person. And he said, we follow good practices because they usually lead to success. That's why they're good practices, never best practices, because sometimes they fail. Good practices can sometimes lead to failure. Mistakes are on the other side. Stupid practices, we know that they don't work, usually, but every now and then a mistake succeeds. You're being an idiot and you get away with it. I'm very good at that, I can tell you that. And then in the middle, we find the experiments. That's the things that we do of which we do not know whether it will be a success or a failure. That's the whole point of calling it an experiment. And it turns out that learning is optimal in the middle when we run experiments. The scientists say if there's a 50-50 chance of succeeding and failing, then the learning rate is optimal. We learn nothing when we just repeat good practices. We already know that they work. We learn nothing when we repeat mistakes. We already know that we're idiots. But we learn something when a good practice fails. Ah, interesting. And when a mistake succeeds. Now, when people say celebrate failure, they indicate this part of the diagram, basically. And that doesn't make much sense, because why would you celebrate this big area? You are being an idiot, right? You already knew this didn't work, this would not work, and we have proof again that it doesn't work. So why celebrate that? It makes sense to celebrate this, the top part of the diagram, but there's a problem. If that is the only reason why you celebrate, then you basically incentivize people to move in that direction, right? You will be rewarding them for repeating good practices. They will prefer to use good practices because if you run an experiment, ooh, scary, you might fail. And that is why we should also celebrate the learning. Right? That is what we should celebrate. Not the failing, but the running of an experiment, even in the cases when we fail. Now, networks are great at running experiments. Hierarchies are great at repeating good practices. If they're big, we call them enterprises usually. Hierarchies are also good at repeating the same mistakes again and again. If they're big, we call them governments usually. And we need a bit of both. We need a bit of the networks and a bit of the hierarchies because we want repeatable good practices, but also lots of experiments. A bit of both. So celebrate success, but also celebrate that we run experiments and we learn something, even in the cases when we fail. That is usually what people mean when they say celebrate failure. They mean celebrate the experiment even when we fail. But that doesn't sound catchy, right? That doesn't sound that nice. I call this a celebration grid. People find this useful at the end of a retrospective, or I did it at the end of workshops. Just draw it on the whiteboard or whatever flip chart, and have people use sticky notes and whatever to discuss the experiments, the good practices, the bad practices. It is nice when it is visual. So I'll share with you a couple of practices, a couple of experiments, that I have been running with my teams. I have multiple teams, and the one that I've been working with for the last couple of years is called Happy Melly. It's a small company, 10 people, all freelancers and part-timers, but they operate as a team. They really feel that they are a team. And one thing that is a standard practice is we have a way for us to get to know each other better, because we have a remote team. We work in different countries, different parts of the world, and then it's difficult to get to know each other better when you're not in the same office. So we had to find some practices for that. And one practice that I came up with is personal mapping. It is simply drawing a mind map of yourself with your name in the middle. Jurgen. Note to the Germans: there's no umlaut on the name. You see that? You see that? The Dutch are even more efficient than the Germans, I think. We don't do the umlaut thing. And the hobbies and friends and values and education, and I basically fill the page with whatever comes to my mind about myself. And then I ask the same from my colleagues. Different parts of the world, use paper, use a tool, whatever. So this is what my friend Lisette did. She is our remote office manager, or zookeeper as she calls herself. And she used pictures. I thought that was a great idea. I didn't come up with that. But she is a more visual person, apparently. So she used pictures, illustrations. And then the trick is, we figured out that you should not present your personal map, because that's boring. People are going to talk about their projects that they worked on and yada, 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 yada. And the extroverts will go on and on and on and on and on. And the introverts are done in 10 seconds, basically. So you want to level that playing field a bit. And so we said, okay, you cannot present your map. People have to ask questions. So we started asking questions. Hey, Lisette, why did you have pink hair over here? And Lisette said, oh, that's a picture of me when I was 19 years old, and I was experimenting with hairstyles. And then we had a great discussion about the things that we did when we were young, or when we were feeling young. And that's a good team exercise, team bonding exercise. Here's another one. This one is from Hannu. Hannu is our web developer. And Hannu is from Finland, which you can see, it's totally obvious because there's almost nothing on the personal map, as you can see. My friends in Finland pride themselves on the fact that they use very few words. But the Finnish people are very economical with their language, right? They have to be, because in the Finnish language, the words are 10 times longer than in any other language. With lots of I's and T's all over the place. So Hannu said, my name is Hannu, I'm from Finland. That's Finnish communication, yeah. The Finnish apply to the Finnish communication basically also Finnish design, right? Finnish design is, there's no need to fill empty space with crap. That's Finnish design. So this is Finnish design applied to communication. I love it. I love the people in Finland. They're just around the corner over there, I believe, yeah. So here's another one. This was Sergey, our software architect, as you can see. I love these personal maps. If every person is different, they all use different tools, and some go overboard with crayon markers. Oops, this is another one. Some just go overboard with crayon markers and pencils and colors, etc. And I like that because they're different people with different attitudes, different personalities. So every personal map is a great thing to enjoy together. And now this has become a standard practice. It started as an experiment. I thought, what can we do to discuss things like hobbies and family and goals in life in a playful manner? So I started making a personal map about myself. And that's the key here, right? I started leading by example. I was the first one. I said, this is my map. Would love to show yours. I'd love to see yours and ask me any questions. And now it's standard practice in our onboarding process at the Happy Melly team. Whenever we hire someone new, we want to see their personal map. I have some other examples for you. I started a new little company called Agility Scales. There are 8 people now. They work full time instead of part time. And what we're trying to do is create a tool, a platform basically for guides leading you through work life. So unlike Happy Melly, which is all about content, about workshops, this is about a platform. And I had to hire people. I did a lot of research into hiring, and basically the idea is that we're trying to be as much as possible like a game company, as much as we can. So I thought, all right, I have to gamify the recruitment process itself as well. So I started drawing out the recruitment process, and I actually defined levels. Pre-screening, screening, first interview, assignment, next interviews, etc. And then 2 trial periods. I actually call them levels that you can achieve in the recruitment process. And a key thing is that, well, this says reject or continue, but actually it should say on hold, because I never reject people indefinitely. It's just say, well, you haven't achieved the end of this level yet, but you can keep trying. Like a game, you can keep trying as long as you want. The game will not reject you. It just says you haven't passed the gate yet. Keep it up. And I try and ask all kinds of things. Like in the first step, I ask people for a video presentation. It's just 1 minute, answer 3 questions. What is the most inspiring person in your life? What is the book that changed you? And something else that I don't remember. Record it in a video, send it to me, here's the form, and several other things. 500-piece article about gamification that I asked. And that was level 1. And then you pass level 1 or not, and then you go to level 2. It is very much like a gamified process. And what I was happy to hear was when I had conversations with people in the first interview. I had dozens of talks. Even the people who did not pass the first interview, they said, this is the best recruitment process I've ever seen. I'm not accepted for the first round, but I enjoyed it nevertheless. Thank you so much. They thanked you literally for being part of that process. And that's just me trying to understand how to make this more enjoyable, not only for me, but also for the participant in that recruitment process. And by making it look like a game as much as possible. Still working on it. I've started doing this a couple of months ago. I now have 8 people, so the recruitment process is on hold. I do not hire more people. But as soon as we have a little bit of success, I'm sure we will pick it up again and improve the game that is this process. Other examples. I had our first get-together, our first meeting as 8 people was last month in Rotterdam. I flew everyone in from various parts of the world. We have 2 from Germany and 1 from UK, 1 from Ukraine, Brazil, United States. And we were all in the room. And we had to talk about purpose and values and such things, because this was the first time that we actually met face to face. I had already seen most of them face to face, because one part of the recruitment process was here the next interviews. One day that I worked with each person individually, but now they had to work with each other. And we put on the agenda the values for our team. That's important to discuss. What is it that we care about? And then Thomas, one of our team members, came up with a very interesting exercise. Everyone loved it. He said he had the picture of 250 words from my book, Managing for Happiness. Lots of value words like integrity, openness, respect, honesty. 250 words on a big screen. And each of us had to pick 7 words that we liked. Any 7 words. So we'll write them on sticky notes. And we sat in a circle. And then each of us had 7 sticky notes with our favorite words from those 250. And then we had to give them to the person next to us. So it went round one chair. And then the person who received the stickies from the previous person would remove 1 sticky note that did not resonate with him, or resonated the least. Remove 1. Then give it to the next person. The next person again removed 1 value. It got harder and harder, I can tell you. So it went around the whole circle until by the end you got your own sticky note back, but there was only 1 left because everyone else had removed 6 stickies. So we ended with 7 sticky notes because we had 7 people in the room. And then we had a discussion of half an hour together to reduce those 7 even more to 3 because, well, we had a happiness and engagement or something like that. It was okay, well, let's choose because they're very similar. Because we wanted to end up with 3. And this is the result: fairness, passion, and happiness that we like very, very much as a team. And we're trying to practice this all the time, every month. Come up with stories of how we are trying to be happy and fair and passionate at the same time. But I share this with you because, again, this was an experiment. We tried something that seemed to make sense. Thomas was the one who suggested it, and everyone loved it. So probably going to describe it. There's probably going to be a blog post about it at some point because this worked for us pretty well. Some more examples, things that we're doing. This is actually something we're working on this week. OKRs, objectives and key results. Very difficult practice, but very, very valuable. I did a lot of research. I experimented with it already last year and I failed in several iterations, but I'm going to keep trying, I promise myself. Like with running, I keep trying until I get it, until it doesn't hurt anymore. And the OKRs practice, for those who've never heard of it, is basically about measuring yourself, setting goals and giving yourself targets. OKR stands for objectives and key results, OKR. The objective, for example, in my case, for this small team, is for the end of this quarter, we have just 1 month left, is make the team love and use our own app. Nobody else has it. Only we have our own app. We just got started. I told them we have to love what we're doing. Otherwise, we will never be able to convince anyone else that this is a great thing to use. Right? I would not be enthusiastic showing it to friends. So make ourselves love it now. That is the first objective. But that is a qualitative goal. Make people or make ourselves love the app. How do you measure that? Right? That is the key results. So this is the objective, and these are the key results. Basically targets. And I updated the target just this morning because this is not specific enough. But I said the Net Promoter Score, NPS, stands for Net Promoter Score, should be at least 75. And Net Promoter Score is, on a range of 0 to 10, do you recommend other people to use this service? So I'm going to check every week for each of the team members. We're going to vote or ask, would you now recommend your friends to use this or not yet? We're going to have to measure that regularly. And the number of guides that are in our app, the step-by-step plans, basically, how many are actually used? Is it having a positive impact on us? Yes or no? This is what we can measure, what we can talk about. And then the idea of OKRs is quite interesting, is at the end of an iteration, usually 3 months, you give yourself a score. You grade yourself on the level of 0 to 100%. So we have here a score at the end of the month, and here. There will be 3 scores, and then you would take the average. You can also have personal OKRs. This is mine that I created just this week. Well, as you can see, this is very specific. 10 gamified practices, 10 guides actually used by one team member. We can measure that. We can draw a statistic. But engaging content is the qualitative objective. So this is still an experimentation mode. There's a lot of literature available on OKRs, and the people who have been using them for a while, they are very enthusiastic about it, even though everyone says it's pretty hard. But even when you fail, that's okay. You're going to learn a lot about setting yourself objectives and turning them into targets, and then measuring your own progress towards the results. A couple of things are very important with OKRs. One is that everything is transparent. Everyone sees each other's goals and targets, and you can help each other out. It turns into a collaborative system, usually. When people see, oh, this is what you want to achieve, well, I can help you with that. It would be nice if you could help me with my objectives and key results, etc. And the second is, there should be no bonuses attached to OKRs. So they do not feed directly into performance appraisals, because these are targets that people set for themselves. Like, I set myself a target of trying to run at least 42 kilometers per week. What would happen if someone said, you get 1,000 or 2,000 euros per week if you set yourself a target that you can achieve? Well, obviously the targets will go down. People will set themselves lower targets to increase the chance that they get their bonuses, and you will basically destroy the whole the process. So OKRs is a practice that we're working with. Again, this is an experiment. We're in experimentation mode. Again, I'm leading by example. I was the first one to say, hey guys, this is my OKR, by the way. What's yours? I asked them, I reminded them again this morning, because 5 of them have offered their OKRs, 3 are still working on them. Another example, thing that we are trying. We have a daily cafe. Unlike a co-located team, with Scrum, for example, there's an assumption that you're in the same room and that you have a 15-minute stand-up or whatever to discuss what's going on, what did I do yesterday, what will we do today. But we are not co-located. We are on 4 different continents, basically. So we have to do something else. That's why we came up with the daily cafe. It takes a little bit longer, half an hour. It's every day at 6 o'clock. And we turn that into a ritual. The first 5 minutes of the daily cafe is chit-chat. We must do chit-chat. We noticed if we didn't force ourselves to chit-chat, then we go straight into work mode, because there's so much to do. But then after a while, we lacked the feeling of being a team, of knowing that someone is having a birthday or something like that. Those simple things that you would pick up if you sit in the same room. So one of us said we should start with 5 minutes mandatory chit-chat, basically, about whatever comes to mind. Oh, I saw this movie yesterday, or I'm playing this game now, which is awesome, you should try it, whatever. It works. Also, we promise ourselves at the end of every daily cafe, we do a vote. We do a rating on how effective the meeting was. Were we annoyed that some discussions took too long, or were the Wi-Fi didn't work, whatever. We basically say 1, 2, 3, and everyone holds up a hand, 1 point or 5 points or something in between. And we take a screenshot. So we have a folder full of screenshots, and probably at some point I'm going to turn this into a spreadsheet. I'm very sure. Just haven't got the time yet. It would be nice to have some artificial intelligence do that for me, actually. so that I don't have to count all the fingers myself. But yeah, so we have a rating every time, and so 4 or 5 is of course great. As soon as someone has 2 or 3, we ask, okay, what was the issue? And then maybe the Wi-Fi was crap or anything else, solvable or not solvable. But these routines, these rituals, they evolve over time. I have another nice example. That's something that we did earlier this week. That was even more amazing. And you see, everyone gave the meeting 5 stars, except for Kirill, but he's from Ukraine, so there's no possibility of making him happy about anything, basically. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Kirill is awesome. As you can see, he's our Android guy. But what we did was we had our first 360-degree meeting as a team. Ooh, that was scary. That was scary. Was the first one. And I did a bit of research. What are the best ways to do 360s? And a lot of the documents are very traditional. Like you fill out a form and you send them to HR, and then HR schedules a meeting between you and a manager, and then you have all this anonymous feedback from your colleagues who are saying things about you and you don't know who it was. Very annoying. The most effective way to create distrust in the organization, basically. So we do something else. It's basically a 360-degree sandwich that we do, a 360-degree feedback sandwich. So I asked everyone, for each of your colleagues, you should have 2 compliments and 1 suggestion for improvement. And then we went around on the team. It was all face-to-face, and each of us had a mascot. That was Thomas's idea. He picked up somewhere from psychology. He said, everyone should bring a mascot, because it's easier to get criticism from other people when you have a mascot next to you. And that works. It's amazing. This is gamification. So each of us brought a doll or whatever, Linux figure, Android, whatever. This is what I found in my hotel where I was at that moment. No idea what it was. But the first thing you do was everyone took their round, and Thomas started because he organized the event, so he led by example and he started. And at first he asked, now I want from every one of you, I want your first compliment. So everyone gave Thomas a compliment. It makes you feel good. And then second round, now from each of you, I want your point of improvement. And then you hold up, you hold up your mascot. And everyone was very kind at giving honest suggestions. And then to top it off, you asked for the second round of compliments to make you feel good again. And that took 15 minutes per person. And then Thomas gave the microphone, virtually speaking, to the next person, who did that again. It took 2 hours, and all of us agreed this was the most amazing meeting we had in a very, very long time. Again, it was an experiment. I just did a bit of research, what would be good ways of giving each other feedback. Always give more compliments than criticism. Alternate it and have people discuss with each other. Because sometimes it could be that people disagree. Like A has an improvement suggestion for B, but C actually disagrees. And says, well, I think that's your own problem. It's not their problem. These things could happen. They loved it. Funny thing is that Ian is from UK. Ian said the most scary thing, he said, was the compliments. He didn't mind the criticism, but he said, I was very afraid for the compliments because I'm British. And British people do not give each other compliments, basically. Everything sucks, right, in Britain. If it does not suck, then it must be good. But they don't tell each other, basically. That's the British way, apparently. So yeah, he was quite nervous about the compliments, he said. It was so cute. Anyways, that was our exercise this week. And clearly the point I'm trying to make here is that you run experiments as a leader. And the question that I started out with was basically, how do we change other people? Well, you change other people by running experiments, learning stuff, and being the first one to participate other people in your experiment. I don't change others. I run experiments, and then I invite my colleagues and my team to participate in the experiment. And I tell them, maybe it doesn't work, but it will be fun figuring out, don't you think? And always if I approach it like that, you have much more success. Because everyone loves experiments, even though they might be scary every now and then. You might get a compliment, ooh! But it is much nicer to invite people into your experiment than telling them, I'm going to change you with a new practice. Last couple of minutes, excuse me. Many people find this difficult in their environment, in their company, of course, because they say, Jurgen, I would love to run so many experiments, but my company expects this from me. Right? They expect me to, I don't know, to do traditional budgeting and planning while I want to do something else. Or they want me to do make Gantt charts, or they want me to have performance appraisals in the traditional way with the HR department. And they want me to be a square. Well, I want to be a circle. Right? I want to be like this. I want 360-degree meetings with people, and I want burn down charts, not Gantt charts, and I want to be more collaborative instead of having people fill out HR forms. So I want to be a circle, and I cannot be a circle when I'm expected to be a square, right? It's impossible. Not true. You could be the circle in the square, as I have done many times. You could be like this. Right? You could be the outside. You could be to the outside. You could be like the square, while on the inside you are like a circle. For example, once a couple of years ago, I had a similar 360-degree meeting with my team, but I used the HR forms that I had received from the HR department back then. They sent me those forms. You have to fill these out. I said, all right, I'll do that. I organized dinner with my team. I printed all the forms, and we filled them out with each other. It was a great meeting. It was an awesome meeting. And 1.5 hours later, we had all the forms filled out. I signed them, and I gave them back to HR. Everyone was happy. HR had their forms, and I did things my way, basically, very Sinatra-like, right? I did it my way. So sometimes you can be the circle in the square, and it costs you extra time, extra effort. Yes, that's true. I was at a company in Norway, in Oslo, Tandberg Systems. They are now Cisco Systems. They create hardware and software for video equipment, and I was in the war room of a project manager. And there were burn downs everywhere, and he said, I love Agile stuff. I have Scrum teams, Kanban teams, both hardware, software, fantastic. But when everyone was out of the room, he said, don't tell anyone. But he lifted one of the burn down charts, and there was a Gantt chart underneath, I can tell you. It was a traditional Gantt chart. He said, I have to make these things for my stakeholders outside, for marketing, for clients. They expect milestones, because that is what is expected from me. But I don't bother the team with that. I do the transformation. I do the translation from the burn down to the Gantt chart. It's extra work. Some people say, it is like paying a tax. You don't want to pay the tax. You think stupid things are being done with the tax. But at least paying the tax allows you to survive in that organization. So let's pay it. So the outside world then sees you like a square, while on the inside you are actually a circle. And by operating like a square, people will trust you. I experienced that myself when I was CIO of a company. By doing things that the CEO expected from me, even though often I did not agree, I did gain trust. Well, Jurgen's pretty reliable. He does what I want. I raised myself in his eyes, and then I was a sparring partner, basically. And I could discuss changing the square into something that looks a little less squarey. But to have this discussion, hey, wouldn't it be nice if the square was not so squarey? Maybe a bit rounded corners. To have that discussion, you need to build the trust first, right? So first, as some say, Stephen Covey, famous management expert, said, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Right? First, understand what they want from you and do it, deliver on expectations, then you get that trust, then you can do whatever you want. After 7 years, I always said, it's like I have golden handcuffs in this company. I could do anything I wanted as long as I didn't leave. So much trust that I had achieved with the top management. So Lead by example, be the change that you want to see. That is how you manage yourself, and indirectly, that's how you will manage other people. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you had a great event.
Thank you very much, Jurgen. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
You already have your poster, so I don't have another one for you.
Yeah, do not have another poster for me.
Yeah, it was really great to host you in Gdynia, and I hope you enjoyed the time.
I certainly did. Thank you.
And see you next time in Poland.
Yeah.
Where is your next day?
I'm sure that will be soon.
Do you have already scheduled it?
You guys do not get enough of me, apparently.
Yeah.
You keep inviting me back.
Yeah. Okay, Jurgen, there is a taxi driver waiting for you.
Awesome.
You are flying together with Laurent. Again, thank you very much.